It was a Saturday afternoon, and I was finally levying the dream. After 15 years of working brutal 16-hour shifts, scraping together every penny I could, I finally had something to show for all that blood, sweat, and muscle ache. My name's Jason Turner, and what I had in my backyard was the culmination of years of hard work. I'd just finished building an in-ground pull-in infinity edge design, no less, that looked like it belonged in a five-star resort. I remember sitting on the edge of the pool, looking out at the shimmering water. The sun was high, casting everything in a golden glow. The pool's water seemed to blend seamlessly into the sky beyond, the perfect escape after years of grinding away. I'd saved for this. All of it $40,000 spent on what was supposed to be my personal sanctuary. The pool, though, would become the center of a battle I never expected. At first, everything was perfect. The pool was pristine, the water clear, and everything just how I'd imagined it. It was my slice of peace, after all the years of making do, taking odd jobs, and working late into the night, always too tired to enjoy anything. Now, I was finally able to take a dip when I felt like it. No more sitting in traffic, no more long shifts, just my pool, my backyard, and me. But I didn't realize it then, sitting there, how soon my peace would be shattered. You see, it wasn't just me who noticed my pool. She was a widow in her late 60s with bleach blonde hair that always looked too perfect for someone who didn't do much with her days. But that wasn't the part that stood out. No, it was the way Karen watched. Day after day, I'd notice her staring at the pool over the fence from her kitchen window. It wasn't casual glances either. She was watching with intent, like she was cataloging everything I did in that backyard. Now, Karen's son, Brad, wasn't exactly the neighborhood golden boy. He was in his mid-20s, lived with his mom, and, by all accounts, did nothing but play video games and complain about life. He had no job, hadn't had one in years, and it didn't seem like he was planning on changing that anytime soon. The guy was always in his mom's basement. The only time he left was for food deliveries or to complain about the noise from construction. At first, I didn't think much of it, but as time went on, Brad started popping up more and more around the fence, staring at my pool with this look in his eyes like he wanted to dive in himself. It got to the point where I'd notice him lingering by the fence, just watching. I could feel the tension in the air. Then one Saturday, I woke up and decided it was the perfect day to actually enjoy the pool, swim a few laps, soak up the sun, just relax. But that peaceful morning, my moment of triumph, would soon turn into something else entirely. As I floated on my back, feeling the warmth of the sun, I noticed movement out of the corner of my eye. It wasn't the usual glance from Karen, though. This was different. She wasn't just standing at the window. She was out in her backyard, pacing back and forth. Her gestures were exaggerated, frantic almost, and I could hear her voice carrying over the fence, but I couldn't quite make out the words. Still, the energy in the air felt off. I didn't know it then, but that would be the moment everything changed. I tried to ignore her, trying to enjoy the swim, but as the minutes ticked by, I started feeling that familiar gut feeling, the one I'd learned to trust after years of dealing with difficult clients and unpredictable work environments. Something was brewing. And sure enough, I was right. Out of nowhere, Karen suddenly appeared at the edge of my pool, standing in my yard like she owned the place. She was blocking the sunlight, and just that simple move shifted the atmosphere. "Excuse me," I called out from the pool, trying to keep my voice even. "This is private property. You can't just walk into my yard." She didn't flinch, didn't seem the least bit concerned. Instead, she put her hands on her hips, looked me up and down with a smirk, and said, "Don't you dare take that tone with me. I've been levying in this neighborhood longer than you, and I know what's appropriate and what isn't." It was then that I saw him braid merging from the gap in the fence. He waddled in, his oversized shirt barely fitting his frame, and he was acting like he had every right to be there. I froze for a second. Was this really happening? Was Karen seriously bringing her son into my yard? "Seriously, what do you think you're doing?" I asked, feeling the anger bubble up despite my best efforts to stay calm. Brad looked at me like I was the one being unreasonable. "It's not fair," he said. "You've got this nice pool, and we've got nothing. I need exercise for my joints, and swimming is the only thing I can do that doesn't hurt. You can't just hog all this, man. It's not right." I was speechless for a second, but then I just shook my head. "This pool is mine, Brad. I've worked years for it. I've saved every penny to build this, and now you're standing here, demanding that I let you use it. It's not happening. But Karen wasn't done. She stepped forward, her tone shifting to something more menacing. You're being selfish. My son is suffering. Swimming helps him, and you're just keeping it all to yourself. You don't have a right to keep this luxury from him. I couldn't believe it. This was the moment I realized this wasn't about a pool or a disability. It was about control. They thought they could take what wasn't theirs, manipulate me into giving up something I'd worked my ass off for. I told them both to leave. I wasn't going to let them take my property. But Karen wasn't finished. Her son stood there, unmoving, with that entitled look on his face. No, he said, I'm getting in whether you like it or not. That's when the real conflict began. At that moment, something in me snapped. I had worked so hard to build that pool, to finally have a piece of luxury that was all mine, and here they were, standing in my yard, demanding what wasn't theirs. I took a deep breath, trying to maintain control, but there was no way I was going to let them do this. You need to leave. Right now, I said, my voice calm but firm, my muscles tense with anger. If you don't, I'm calling the police. This is trespassing. Brad, still standing there with his feet dangling in my water, gave me a smirk. He clearly didn't think I'd follow through. But he underestimated me. Go ahead, Karen spat, pulling out her phone. Call them. I'll tell them you were threatening us. A big guy like you, harassing an elderly woman and a sick young man? We'll see who they believe. The audacity of her was enough to send my blood pressure through the roof. This wasn't about her son's so-called health issues. It was about trying to force their way into my life, trying to take control because they felt entitled to it. No, I said, stepping forward, my feet now planted firmly in the water. This is about respect. You're trespassing, Karen. You're taking something that's not yours, and I'm not going to let that happen. Brad shifted uncomfortably at the edge of the pool, his feet still disturbing the water, but Karen was too far gone. She didn't care about any of it. She was too caught up in her delusions of entitlement. Then, just as I thought the situation couldn't get worse, Karen took it a step further. I know your type, she sneered, her voice dripping with venom. You people always think you can just move into decent neighborhoods and start causing trouble. Well, not here. Not on my watch. The words hit like a slap to the face. I could feel my jaw tightening, but I didn't say anything. Instead, I let the silence hang in the air for a moment. I wasn't going to let her bait me into some stupid fight. I knew exactly what she was trying to downplay on the racial tension, make me the bad guy. But I wouldn't let her. Karen, if you don't leave my property, I'm calling the police. You're trespassing, and if you think you can use race as an excuse for your behavior, or think again, I said, stepping closer, my voice low but unyielding. Brad finally looked over at his mom, a bit of hesitation creeping into his eyes. I could see him realizing the situation was out of hand, but his mother wasn't backing down. She stepped closer to the edge of the pool, her eyes fixed on me, as if daring me to call her bluff. You don't get to treat us like this, she yelled, holding her phone up as if it were a weapon. I'm documenting this. Everyone needs to see how aggressive you're being toward a disabled person and an elderly woman. You're going to pay for this. I shook my head. You're the one who broke into my yard. You're the one making threats. You're trespassing, Karen. That's what you'll be telling the police, right? That you walked into my private property and caused all this trouble. Karen's face twisted into pure rage. You're a liar. You're the one threatening us. And I will make sure the whole neighborhood knows what kind of man you really are. I saw her hand tighten around her phone, and in that moment, I knew exactly what I had to do. Fine. Keep recording. But you're not getting away with this. I'm calling the police, I said, taking out my phone. As I dialed, she took a step forward, as if she were going to make a move. That's when Brad, who had been quietly observing his mother's descent into madness, finally spoke up. Mom, please. We need to go. This isn't worth it, he said, his voice trembling. You're making everything worse. It was like a light bulb went off in his head. For the first time, I saw a hint of guilt, of regret. He finally realized that his mother's actions were spiraling out of control. But Karen wasn't ready to let it go. No, she barked, her voice growing more desperate. We're not leaving until he lets you swim. You have the right to be here too. We've lived here longer than him. I couldn't believe it. This was about pride, about control, about trying to force me into submission. But it wasn't going to happen. Just then, the sirens blared in the distance. Karen dropped the stone. She was holding the one she had been threatening to throw into my pool to damage it. She froze. She had no more moves left to play. "Thank you, God," I muttered under my breath. The police were almost here. She realized too late that her plan had failed. She started to backpedal, trying to salvage what was left of her story. But I had everything on camera. The evidence was clear. The police arrived, and the moment they saw the scene, they knew exactly who the problem was. Karen was arrested for trespassing, property damage, and making threats. Trevor, standing off to the side, looked like a man who had just woken up from a bad dream. 1 week later, the court hearing was quick. Karen had nothing to stand on, and the evidence was stacked against her. She was fined and ordered to pay restitution for the broken gate latch and the emotional distress she had caused. Trevor was there, sitting quietly, and for the first time, I could see the weight on his shoulders. After everything went down, I found out that Trevor had been working hard, trying to get his life on track. He came to me one day, a little over a week after the confrontation. "Mr. Turner," he said, his voice a little shaky. "I want to apologize for everything. My mom, she's been wrong about a lot of things. I've been wrong about a lot of things. But I want to change." I saw the sincerity in his eyes. "What do you need, Trevor?" He didn't ask for a handout. "I want to work for you," he said. "I want to learn construction. I want to pay you back for everything my mom messed up." I could see the transformation. This wasn't the same entitled young man who had once demanded to swim in my pool. This was someone ready to work, to build his own future. "I'll give you a shot," I said, knowing full well that this was the beginning of a new chapter for him. 5 years later, I was sitting by my pool again, reflecting on how far things had come. The neighborhood had healed, and what had started as an ugly conflict had turned into something much greater. Trevor now ran his own successful construction company, specializing in accessibility for homes. He was thriving. He even built his own pool, one that was accessible to everyone, and invited me to the opening. As we sat there, looking out over his creation, he smiled and said, "You know, I used to think I deserved everything. But now I know better. You taught me that respect and hard work mean everything." I couldn't help but smile. He had come a long way. And the best part? His journey had just begun. What do you think about this situation? Was Karen in the right, or did she cross the line? What do you think about Trevor's transformation? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the importance of boundaries, respect, and how we handle entitlement in our communities. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories like this.